Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Coach Timmy and today I'm bringing you the first On the Brink of Season 7. We're going to be going over Twixie. Now the reason I want to go over his games is because he placed 72nd and 12 points off money, so he had 139. We see here money is worth 151, so he's only 12 points off money. But when I look over his games here, you got to start thinking about context, and I think it's always important to give context before you start doing reviews. Basically a 0-point game here, 22 minutes alive for 24th place. 17th place for 2 kills, 21 minutes, 34th with 7, and 21 minutes, 39th with 1. So 4 games where he made it through to in-game and wasn't able to convert, and he only needed 12 more points to make money. This could have been not only making money, this could have been a first place or a top 10, something like that. So let's get into the review. I hope you enjoy. Now, the only game that I'm really going to look at is the last one, because with 12 points to go, of course, you've got all of the context beforehand. But if we have a look over the last game, we might be able to try and understand maybe the context a little bit more, and we know this game's going to be stacked, so it's going to be a good one to watch as well. So, for those of you who don't know, Twixie is on controller. He used to be one of the top console pros. Back in the day in Season 10, he was an absolute demon in solo cash cups. He used to come top. He won a couple. I remember watching them on stream. So he's a really, really, really good solo player. So we started by seeing he's landing at Holy Hatchery. So one of the things I'm not too worried about when I'm going to watch this gameplay is potentially the way he rotates mid-game. I'm guessing it's more going to be about the way he looks for refreshes and the way he sets himself up for half-half. The main reason for that being, because we've seen him get to in-game consistently, what his issue seems to be is converting once he gets there. So we're going to have a look at what the in-game stuff that's going wrong in a more stacked game. And then if we feel like we haven't quite understood, we'll have a look at a few more. But he's got the alien on his head, it's just not registered, so we'll skip forward. So if we have a look at the map, we can see he's pulled zone. This is going to be a zone where he probably needs Surge, because this is the last game that he's got into. And we can actually even look for a little bit more context here. I'll pull it up. Look at that, not looking to fight at all. That's really, really good. I like that mentality. So he understands where he's at in terms of the lobby, and he's going to make sure that he puts himself into as good a position he can to not throw that position. So what you can see here is that his last game finished at 12:19 PM. That means he probably queued into this with 5 minutes to go. So he absolutely 100% knows that this is his last game. And at this elo, of course, you got to also be thinking about who could potentially be in your lobby. You got Fatch, the guy who eventually won it, Nico, Queasy from EU. You've got Acorn, Threats. There's some really, really top tier players in here. Uzi, Luda, Illist. So you've also got to be taking that into account. There's going to be really, really high tier players in this lobby, and you've got to make sure you adjust your theory and the way that you play accordingly. So we see him making a rotation. He made a really good rotation up to Believer's Beach, assuming that it was going to pull a little bit further, which I think is always a good assumption to make just off of past history. And then he makes his rotation back in. I think with a zone like this, I would have liked to see him hook around a little bit more and set himself up towards Bridge here a little bit better. And rotating straight back into Believer's Beach here. If zone pulls south, we're going to end up with a lot of congestion here that he has to rotate through. Staying high. That's always a strategy that I keep on talking about on my channel. The idea of not playing the low ground and going through other people's builds, but just kind of ramping over the top of them, making that rotation a little bit easier for him. And although you might open up sightlines to other people, what you don't want is to cause a pinch. And if you sit on low ground, those guys who may be below you can set up pinches with the guys behind you as well. By cutting that line of sight, you only allow damage from one area. Being 150 health is pretty painful, and he doesn't have any mobility, but people have definitely been in worse scenarios. He's up nice and high, so he should be able to see any pads if he wants to take one to rotate to half-half, and he's already up right nice and high, so he should be able to stay high over these builds to make a nice easy rotation in as well. Essentially waiting for... There you go. So staying nice and high. I really like that from Twixie. Doesn't have to challenge for high ground, but essentially just makes it really difficult for anyone to look for any sort of pinch on him in an awkward scenario. So all really nicely done. I like his theory. Things seem to be pretty on point, to be honest. So from this game, this is exactly why you don't 50-50 with a controller player. Spare bow, unfortunate. So nothing really happening here. And he is nice and high, so if there is a pad to recycle, that's the thing, he is relying on a pad to recycle. And by going early, he allows himself to get jumped on like that. And there you go. That is the one tiny flaw that he has made this entire game. And unfortunately, it's cost him so much HP. and so much time. Look at where he ended up, and look at where he is now in zone. He's now having to play from backside, which is not a terrible thing in solos, being able to recycle, but it's also just a little bit more dangerous. And of course we get a desync right as he dies. This game's great. Okay, so since that game was no help whatsoever on its endgame issues, let's see if there's another game that can help us out. I'm going to go with a game with essentially exactly the same length, which is going to essentially be exactly the same time he goes down, which is about halfway through first moving. So we can maybe see what his issues with first moving are. Okay, let's get this forward a little bit here as well. We'll get into the late game, and we'll have a quick look. So 2 in a row, where he's got through to endgame, and the thing is, the nature of solos is that there is just more RNG. That is a fact of solos. The reason being, you don't have any teammates. You are solely relying on yourself and your own skill. And the thing is, with the RNG in Fortnite, it will affect one person more than it affects 3. Now, immediately I'm looking at this. He's got 600 builds. I'd like to see him force the issue a little bit more. I'm looking at this and I'm going, he's basically sitting right in amongst everyone here. As soon as this closes, look at where he is when zone pops. He is in amongst everybody here, right? There is so many people sitting here in this one side of zone. Ideally, when he lands there, he extends out and he's about where Pavson or this guy or Kite is, right? And from there, at least he has the opportunity to extend out into a little bit more of dead space and clear some congestion rather than playing with so many people around you. The reason layering and playing edge is so important is because you minimize the amount of people around you. Essentially, by not doing that properly here, Twixie's put himself into a position with even with 500 plus mats, he's having to play like he's poverty because he's having to play through so many layers. But he does do some nice layer dropping there. That was really well. That was really well done. But it's almost like he's playing like he has no materials left. Cuts over to an edge really nicely, but the thing is, he's been playing catch-up this entire time, right? And when you're playing catch-up back zone, unfortunately, that is one of the things that can happen to you fairly easily. Just probably wasn't quite focused on the right things enough. Came down to him needing to put a little bit more focus on getting ahead there. He had 600 mats. He just wanted to extend it a little bit further, find a refresh on, halfway through that rotating zone there. Alright, we'll watch this last one here. 17th place with 2 kills. Again, I think I want to put an emphasis on he's done really, really well here to get through to the end game in all 4 of these games, but he needs to find a way to consistently convert. Even if he converted in 1 or 2 of these games here, it's guaranteed money, and it's probably a top 10 if he converts in even 2 of them. So he's done really, really well to get to the stage, but it's just about making sure that he gets over the line. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not looking at his mid-game, because obviously his mid-game was done really, really well. If he's able to get to late game all of those games, that's exactly what you want to see as a coach. Okay, first moving popping here, he's got 35 builds, so immediately the situation changes. If you're at this sort of stage, you've got peppers, you want to be playing off of other people's builds anyway. You don't want to be building by yourself when you've got peppers, but immediately the situation changes here. He's got to be looking for a refresh right off the gate. That's what I want to be seeing from him. He not only has a pepper pop, but he's got an alien on his head, or a hot flopper pop by the looks of things. Might be a hot flopper. Recycles a pad. Yeah, I think it looks like a hot flopper. And like I said, I'm immediately looking for him to play aggressive here. Look to try and find, this is exactly what I want to see. Even if he doesn't quite pick it up, that aggression and the intent to find a refresh is perfect. Because with 330 builds, it goes like that. You don't want to be messing around with bugger all builds through first and second moving. 130 builds left. He's playing a nice edge here, and exactly what I said earlier about wanting to see him extend in, he has actually done that. So we see him here. He has the ability to access this side of zone if he needs to. I've got a tree in the way, but he can wrap around to here, or he can drop down, sprint ahead. He has first right of zone, should he need to use it. He's only got 12 builds left, so it probably isn't a huge help to him at this stage. But the thing is it is available to him there if he needs it. Pulls far. So he's got a bit of time here to chill out. And now I'm wanting to see how he plays this slow back zone. So again, the intent is really good. And his movement with the pep is really nice as well. Constantly changing layers. It's one of the things that you'll see constantly about top tier players. They're really happy to get in and out of layers, particularly in solo, so he's done that really nicely. And now again, he's just playing nice and slowly, looking to find a refresh at some point here. The constant changing of layers means that even if someone hits you hard when you're low or when you're playing shambles, even if someone hits you hard, you're very hard to track in builds. And now he does get all over the mats, but it's just Siphon. And I would have loved to see him keep the medkit there, even though the Chug Cannon is really good. In solos and in-game, it only does 15 health. And I think the medkit can be used to stall out much better. So really long stall back zone here. Can't quite pick up the kill, unfortunately. It gets stolen. And then that guy chunks a shot to the head. And it, honestly, Nezzy the Menace would be dead in that scenario in any other tournament. So that, unfortunate. Those things need to go. So I think the thing that I learned from that is that he's done a really good job to get to endgame, and it's just about putting it together. He shows some really good understanding of layer changing, mobility, knowing when he needs to drop, to rise, all that sort of important stuff. But when it comes down to it, that all it really takes is one or two of those games. 13 points or 12 points was the difference. All he needed was that one game to take him over the top, and he just wasn't able to put it together. Hope you guys have enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Peace.